Back during the build-up to Final Fantasy XV, producer Hajime Tabata, typically a rather likable and personable figure in the gaming industry, went on an unhinged rant about so-called Final Fantasy disease, particularly regarding expectations about Final Fantasy XV's development that felt especially aimed at what we would call Team ATB, and how developers were looking at the game in the scope of the entire series. And yeah, I did a video about that at the time. Fast forward 7 or so years, Final Fantasy XVI is wrapping up development under Naoki Yoshida, an even more likable and personable producer known to fans as Yoshi-P. Fans includes me, absolutely. I've been a fan of his since I started playing Final Fantasy XIV with version 2.0, and his connection and interaction with the player base is exemplary. Being both a Yoshi-P fan and a member of Team ATB is why it kind of sucks to see history repeating itself in the case of Final Fantasy XVI. You see, Yoshi-P recently made comments about what he described as the discriminatory nature of the JRPG label, but largely just proved that he doesn't understand the term or its origins, making for a repeat of the diseased moment Tabata had. Before 6th gen, the split in RPG formats was clean. The Western stuff was on PC and the Japanese stuff was on console. Someone could say RPG, and you'd know exactly what they were talking about based entirely on the context of the discussion and the tastes of who you were talking to. When the Xbox launched, you saw games like Knights of the Old Republic and Morrowind make their way to the console side, which muddied those waters, because there weren't a whole lot of people changing their tastes over this. Now, I'm someone who can speak with first-hand experience on the origin of these terms because I was on the GameSpot community team when these discussions went on, and participated in them myself, to be completely honest. The discussion actually originated by fans of what would go on to be known as JRPGs, who wanted to make it clear what they did and didn't play now that simply saying RPG no longer had any inherent contextual connotations attached to it, and nobody ran straight to the terms JRPG and WRPG. Instead, the idea was to call them console style and PC style, since it was clear that we were approaching a time where either style could emerge from any region on any platform, as evidenced today by games like Astria Ascending and Chained Echoes. This caused a great deal of indigestion in the Xbox crowd, so eventually more discussion went on and the terms JRPG and WRPG were arrived at, while acknowledging that they weren't built to last. That may be regarded as discriminatory, as, like most genre labels, they were born of a need to differentiate types of games so that people can clearly and succinctly describe their own tastes. But the discrimination isn't against the JRPG side, it originated there. Justified? Absolutely. This goes back to a couple of my recent videos. I've talked before on this channel about how people falsely believe arcade racers are doing well because they think anything that isn't a simulation is an arcade racer. I also talked in the recent Dreamcast video about what the mood was like when the Xbox launched and brought an influx of Western influences into the console side of the gaming market. You had a bunch of people who saw the potential for a future where the RPG space was dominated by the Western side, so the genre would be regarded as healthy because the lack of genre labels meant no one was talking about a theoretically declining Japanese side, making it a priority to get out in front of that by adding clarification. Genre labels are important. Simply starting the discussion of whatever happened to this genre, or why aren't people making this kind of game anymore, can spark independent and even AAA level development if you make it clear that there's an underserved or entirely unserved market out there to buy up content that they've long been denied. It also doesn't escape my attention that people who are making classical JRPGs are never the ones complaining about this. It's never the Akitoshi Kawazu's, Tomoya Asano's, or Katsura Hashino's who are out there complaining about the distinction. If Yoshi-P was making Final Fantasy XVI as a classic Final Fantasy with the ATB system, full party control, and so on, there's not a doubt in my mind that he wouldn't grumble once about this. But because Final Fantasy XVI is, like Final Fantasy XV and Final Fantasy VII Remake, unrecognizable when placed next to games like Final Fantasy VI and Final Fantasy IX, and there are people like myself who have already made the decision to skip it for that exact reason, he feels the need to get defensive, just like Tabata did. There are a lot of fans whose RPG tastes are locked in, and that clearly has him feeling some kind of way. This is so telling because Yoshi-P did all of the complaining and none of the problem solving. If he came forth with better labels that still upheld all of the existing distinctions without any of what he felt was discriminatory language, fantastic. We've needed better RPG genre labels for 2 decades now because we all knew even back then that what we had arrived at wasn't optimal. But I honestly don't think that's what he wants. What he really wants is to put Final Fantasy XVI in the same box as Chrono Trigger and Grandia 2, and is crying foul because people aren't having it. So I'll just leave him with the same words I had for Hajime Tabata 7 years ago. Go on, make your game, but stop trying to bring people that you're clearly not cooking for to the table. It's just depressing, and we're already eating real good elsewhere. That's all for now. If you like this video, then please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, as it all really helps grow the channel. Click the notification bell to know right away when the next video drops. I'm Patrick Mifflin, sounding off.